Once upon a time, in the village of Umbara, ruled by the noble King Zuberi and the wise Queen Thandiwe. But 20 years ago, on a night of grand celebration, a dark twist of fate struck. Queen Thandiwe vanished, embarking on a perilous journey to save her kingdom. Venture with us into a world where bravery confronts treachery, where the echoes of the past shape the battles of the present. Discover hidden secrets, dangers, and unravel the mystery that has shrouded Umbara for 2 decades. This is a tale of love and loss, betrayal and redemption, adventure and destiny. Hold your breath as the saga of Umbara unfolds. Will the lost queen return? Will the rightful heir reclaim the throne? In the village of Umbara, nestled between rolling hills and dense forest, the essence of African tradition and culture thrived in every corner. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky with hues of amber and crimson, a golden glow enveloped the village. The thatched huts, adorned with intricate beadwork and vibrant murals, stood as a testament to the artisans' skill and the villagers' reverence for their heritage. The bustling market, a hive of activity, came alive with the chatter of vendors and buyers. Stalls overflowed with colorful fabrics, handcrafted jewelry, and baskets woven from reeds, each item telling a story of the land and its people. The aroma of roasting meats, seasoned with a medley of indigenous spices, mingled with the sweet scent of honey-drenched pastries, tantalizing the senses. Children chased each other, their giggles harmonizing with the soft hum of the market vendors' calls. The men, adorned in traditional attire, set up lanterns and prepared the feast, their voices deep and resonant as they sang songs of celebration. At the heart of Umbara stood the Grand Palace, a majestic structure with walls adorned in intricate carvings and vibrant tapestries that narrated the kingdom's storied past. Inside, King Zuberi and Queen Thandiwe sat together, their expressions serene yet reflective. The king, revered for his strength and compassion, ruled Umbara with wisdom and fairness, his presence commanding both respect and love from his people. Beside him, the pregnant Queen Thandiwe, cherished by all, radiated grace and warmth. For 10 long years, the palace had been silent of the laughter and cries of a child, as Queen Thandiwe struggled with the heartache of barrenness. Yet the couple's love endured, growing stronger with each passing year. Their shared hope for an heir to continue their bloodline remained unwavering. The news of Queen Thandiwe's long-awaited pregnancy was a miracle that rekindled their dreams and filled the kingdom with renewed hope. Queen Thandiwe gently placed a hand on her swollen belly, feeling the stirrings of life within. She turned to King Zuberi, her eyes shining with emotion, a silent testament to their journey and the promise of a bright future for Umbara. The impending arrival of their child was not only a personal triumph but also a beacon of hope for the entire kingdom, ensuring the continuation of their cherished lineage. With the queen's delivery imminent, the village of Umbara erupted in nightly celebrations, known as the Arrival of the Right Heir Festival. Every evening, the village streets came alive with vibrant dances, rhythmic drum beats, and songs of joy and anticipation. The festival, a grand affair, was a testament to the villagers' excitement and the deep-seated traditions that bound them together. In another part of the palace, the king's 5 concubines gathered, their faces a mixture of emotions. They had each borne sons and daughters for the king, securing their places within the royal family. Among them, Nkosana, the daughter of Manla, the king's cousin, stood apart. Her eyes, dark and brooding, followed the queen's every move. Unlike the others, Nkosana harbored resentment towards Queen Thandiwe. The queen's pregnancy threatened the delicate balance of power and her own ambitions. Nkosona's thoughts swelled with bitterness as she knew the queen's pregnancy would change everything, challenging her position within the palace. The evening's celebrations, meant to unite and uplift, only served to deepen the shadows in her heart. The joyous festival that lit up Umbara each night was a constant reminder of the queen's impending triumph, further fueling Nkosona's discontent. On the 10th night of the festival, as the celebration reached its peak, Queen Thandiwe suddenly went into labor. The excitement within the palace was palpable. Midwives rushed to her side, and the news spread quickly throughout the palace. Inside the queen's chamber, the atmosphere was tense with anticipation. After a long and arduous labor, Queen Thandiwe gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. The midwives' faces lit up with joy, and the queen, excited and relieved, exclaimed, "I have given birth to twins, including the right heir to the throne." Her eyes shone with happiness as she looked at her newborns. At that moment, Nomsa, the wife of the king's chief advisor, bursted into the room, sweating and out of breath. Seeing the queen extremely happy, Nomsa asked all the midwives to leave, except for the head midwife. The queen, looking worried, listened as Nomsa spoke. Nomsa explained, breathlessly, that she had gone out to fetch fresh linens, but had been pressed to urinate. In haste, she decided to do that at the back side of the palace. There, she noticed Manla, the king's cousin, with his men gathered. When she overheard their conversation, she realized he was ready to rebel and dethrone the king if the queen gave birth to a male child. This would ruin his grandson's chance of being king. Mandla had already won the hearts of most of the royal chiefs, and some of them were present with him. He planned to rebel that night, kill the king, queen, and the male child, and crown himself king. Even before anyone could report the rebellion to the king, they would have attacked. The queen panicked, understanding the gravity of the situation. She desperately asked Nomsa what they should do. Nomsa, determined, replied that the only way to keep the queen safe was if she had given birth to a female child, but with a male child born as well, they must act swiftly. Considering the king, the queen suggested leaving the female child to always comfort him. They would escape with the male child through the secret tunnel known by Nomsa, as she had served all her life in the palace. The head of the midwives promised to keep the secret and inform the other midwives, leaving the room first. Nomsa quickly wrapped the newborn prince in a blanket and handed him to Queen Thandiwe. She then led the way, guiding the queen through the dimly lit corridors of the palace. They moved swiftly and silently, avoiding the palace guards and any curious eyes. Nomsa led them to a hidden door behind a tapestry in an unused corridor. She pushed it open, revealing a narrow, dark tunnel. "This way," she whispered, taking the lead. The tunnel was damp and cold, the air thick with the smell of earth and decay. They moved as quickly as they could, the queen clutching her son tightly to her chest. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged from the tunnel into the dense forest beyond the palace grounds. The night was cool and silent, the sounds of the festival distant and muted. The queen and Nomsa escaped with the male child through the secret tunnel. Chief Advisor Temba, arriving to greet the queen, knew nothing of the escape. He was surprised to see only the female baby. As he was about to deliver the news to the king, one of the midwives shouted and informed him of the queen's disappearance. The news made Chief Advisor Temba tremble, and he immediately ordered the guards to search the entire palace. Mandla, the king's cousin, upon learning of the queen's disappearance, joined the search with his men. Though he appeared worried, inwardly he was pleased. Despite their thorough search, the queen was not found. Mandla ordered the midwives to be arrested and held accountable for the disappearance of the village's queen. As they were about to take the head midwife, she whispered the truth of the true heir to Chief Advisor Themba, urging him to keep it secret and promising to tell the full details later. After the search failed, the king was informed. King Zuberi's reaction was one of utter devastation. His face paled, and his strong demeanor shattered. He slumped into his throne, his eyes filled with anguish. The room fell silent as the weight of the news settled over everyone present. How could this happen? Where is my queen? He said angrily. He then summoned all the palace guards to search the whole village and neighboring villages. However, considering the safety of the village, made the matter discreet and decreed that anyone who spoke of the incident would be punished by death. The next day, Chief Advisor Themba visited the head midwife but discovered that she had mysteriously died. There was no explanation whatsoever, and all the officials paid no attention as they said she got what she deserved. Realizing the severity of the situation, Themba understood that the disappearance of the queen must have been due to danger. However, he could not hold anyone accountable and refrained from informing the king, who was still mourning the disappearance of his beloved wife. The villagers, oblivious to the truth, continued their festivities, unaware of the silent storm brewing within the palace walls. 20 years had passed since the mysterious disappearance of Queen Thandiwe, yet the village thrived, its people united by their respect for the king. Princess Zola, now a young woman, embodied the spirit and strength of her father. Her presence brought joy and hope to the villagers, who adored her for her kindness, wisdom, and grace. With her ebony skin glowing in the sunlight and her regal bearing, she moved through the village with an air of quiet authority, always ready to listen to the concerns of her people and lend a helping hand. Despite the peace that reigned in Umbara, shadows lingered in the form of Kojiso, the grandson of Mandla, the king's cousin, and the son of Nkosana. Kojiso, known for his violent temper and arrogance, terrorized the villagers, using his lineage as a shield for his misdeeds. His haughty demeanor and cruel actions had earned him the fear and loathing of many, yet few dared to confront him due to his powerful connections. One day, as the sun reached its zenith, an old man pushed a heavily laden wheelbarrow through the bustling market. Sweat trickled down his weathered face, and his movements were slow and labored. As he navigated the crowded street, he stumbled on a loose stone and fell forward, the contents of his wheelbarrow spilling across the ground. In his fall, he inadvertently splashed mud onto the fine robes of Kojiso, who happened to be passing by with his entourage of guards. Kojiso's face twisted in anger as he looked down at his stained clothes. His voice, cold and menacing, cut through the air. "You clumsy fool," he snarled. "You will pay for this." He gestured to his guards, who immediately moved to carry out his orders. The old man cowered on the ground, pleading for mercy as the guards closed in. The onlookers watched in horror, their fear palpable as they knew the extent of Kojiso's cruelty. At that moment, Princess Zola, who had been visiting the market, heard the commotion and swiftly made her way to the scene. Her eyes widened in shock and anger as she took in the sight of the old man being threatened. She stepped forward, her voice ringing out with authority. "Stop this at once." Kojiso turned, his eyes narrowing as he saw the princess. A cruel smile played on his lips. "Hold her," he ordered his guards. "She needs to learn her place." Before the guards could act, a stone flew through the air and struck Kojiso on the shoulder, causing him to stumble. The crowd gasped as they turned to see who had dared to challenge Kojiso. A young man, dressed in simple trader's clothes, stood with another stone in hand, ready to throw. His eyes burned with righteous anger. The stranger, Tobo, had been passing through the market when he witnessed the injustice unfolding. Unable to stand by and do nothing, he had intervened, creating a distraction that allowed the old man to scramble to his feet and escape the immediate danger. Kojiso, enraged by the assault, backed orders at his men to capture Tobo. The guards rushed forward, but Tobo, quick and agile, dodged their attempts to seize him. The marketplace erupted into chaos as people scrambled to get out of the way, and Tobo used the confusion to his advantage, leading Kojiso's men on a wild chase through the narrow streets of Umbara. Princess Zola watched in awe as Tobo skillfully evaded capture, his bravery and agility leaving a lasting impression on her. The old man, now safely hidden among the crowd, offered silent thanks to his unknown savior. As the sounds of pursuit faded, Princess Zola's mind raced with thoughts of the courageous stranger who had dared to stand up to Kojiso. The marketplace gradually returned to its usual bustle, but the events of that day remained etched in the memories of all who had witnessed them. In the evening, Princess Zola moved gracefully through the market, her presence commanding attention and respect. As she passed by a store selling woven baskets, her eyes caught sight of a familiar figure. It was the stranger who had intervened during Kojiso's attack on the old man. He stood by a stall laden with cotton, engaging in animated conversation with the vendor. His demeanor was relaxed, yet there was an air of quiet strength about him that intrigued Zola. She quickened her pace, weaving through the throng of villagers until she reached him. "Thank you for what you did," she said, her voice warm and sincere. The stranger turned, and a smile spread across his face as he recognized her. "It was nothing, Princess," he replied, inclining his head respectfully. Zola's curiosity was piqued by his humble demeanor. "What is your name?" she asked. "My name is Tobo," he said. "I am just a trader, here to sell cotton." Zola observed him more closely, noting the strong, calloused hands that spoke of hard work and the intelligent eyes that hinted at a depth of experience. There was a simplicity to him, yet also a complexity that made her want to know more. "Just a trader," she echoed with a slight smile. "Your actions were those of a brave man, Tobo. The people of Umbara are grateful." Tobo shrugged modestly, his gaze meeting hers. "I believe in standing up for what is right. It was the least I could do." They talked for a while longer, the conversation flowing easily between them. Tobo told her about his village, his family, and his travels. He spoke with a quiet passion about his work and the land he loved. Zola found herself captivated by his stories, drawn to his sincerity and strength. As the conversation continued, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the market gradually quieted. The two of them talked until nightfall, the stars beginning to twinkle overhead. It was only when her guards came to interrupt her that their conversation came to an end. Tobo glanced at the moon. "I should return," he said. "But it was an honor to speak with you, Princess." Zola nodded, feeling a pang of regret that their conversation had to end. "Thank you, Tobo. I hope our paths cross again." Tobo smiled a warm, genuine expression that reached his eyes. "I hope so too, Princess." With a final nod, he turned and walked back to his stall, leaving Zola standing amidst the bustling market, her thoughts lingering on the stranger who had left such a lasting impression. As she watched him go, she couldn't help but feel that their encounter was the beginning of something significant, a thread woven into the rich tapestry of her life that would reveal its full pattern in time. Weeks later, the palace of Umbara was thrown into turmoil. King Zuberi, once a figure of unwavering strength and wisdom, had fallen gravely ill. His sudden sickness cast a shadow over the palace, causing whispers of uncertainty to spread among the royals and concubines. Despite the gravity of the situation, the focus of many shifted from concern for the king to a more self-serving agenda, the inheritance of the throne. Inside the grand hall, a meeting had been called. The air was thick with tension as the royals and concubines gathered, their faces reflecting a mix of worry and ambition. Nomsa sat beside her father, her expression one of calculated determination. Her son, Kojiso, stood nearby, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. The king's cousin, Mandla, a man known for his cunning and ruthlessness, stood to address the assembly. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of authority and menace. With the king's health in decline, it is imperative that we discuss the future of our kingdom, he began, casting a pointed glance at the other royals. My grandson, Kojiso, being of royal blood, is the most suitable candidate to inherit the throne. Murmurs of agreement and dissent rippled through the hall. The prospect of Kojiso, known for his violent tendencies, becoming king was both feared and expected. Amidst the growing noise, Chief Advisor Temba rose to his feet, his face stern and resolute. Enough. Temba's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. Instead of praying for the king's well-being, you plot for the throne. Shame on all of you. His eyes blazed with righteous anger as he scanned the room, challenging each person to meet his gaze. The hall fell silent, the weight of his rebuke settling over the assembly like a shroud. At that moment, Princess Zola entered the hall, her presence commanding immediate attention. Her eyes, filled with concern, swept over the gathered royals. "What is this meeting about?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with suspicion. The chief advisor dismissed the meeting with a wave of his hand. "This discussion is over," he declared firmly. The royals, shamed into silence, began to disperse, casting furtive glances at one another. Nomsa and her father exchanged a look of frustration, their plans momentarily thwarted. As the hall emptied, Temba turned to Zola, his expression softening. "Princess, we need to talk," he said quietly, guiding her to a more private corner of the room. Zola, still puzzled by the earlier commotion, followed him. Once they were alone, Temba spoke in a hushed tone. "There is something you must know about your mother," he began, watching Zola's face closely. Zola's eyes widened in shock and confusion. "My mother? But she's dead," she stammered, struggling to process the revelation. Temba shook his head slowly. "No, Zola. Your mother disappeared the night you were born. And you have a twin brother who is the rightful heir to the throne." He proceeded to tell her the story of that fateful night, revealing the truth he had kept hidden for so long. As the tale unfolded, Zola listened in stunned silence, her emotions a tumultuous mix of disbelief, sorrow, and hope. The weight of the revelation pressed down on her, but with it came a new resolve. The secrets of the past were beginning to unravel, and with them, the promise of a new future for Umbara. Unknowing to them, one of Nkosona's maids had listened intently as they conversed, revealing long-kept secrets. She swiftly ran to inform Nkosona of all that she had heard. Then, Nkosona pondering about what to do and the evil deeds of her father, she was determined to secure the throne for his son. She visited her father immediately and told him of the matter. He was shocked and immediately called his men and ordered them to keep a close eye on every movement of the king's advisor and the princess. The next morning as dawn broke, Princess planned to find her mother and brother discreetly, telling the palace royals she wanted to journey to the mountains to pray for the king's quick recovery. Alongside Chief Advisor Temba, who had clues on where his wife might be, and 3 royal guards. The journey was arduous, with rough terrain and dense forests to navigate. The princess and her companions pressed on, their resolve strengthened by the urgency of their mission. At nightfall on the first day, they made camp in a clearing, the flickering firelight casting dancing shadows among the trees. They spoke little, each lost in their own thoughts about the task ahead and the secrets they hoped to uncover. On the second day, they reached a small, quiet village nestled at the edge of a lush valley. The village was Nomsa's hometown, a stark contrast to the grandeur of Umbara, its modest homes and simple lifestyle exuding a peaceful charm. As they entered the village, they were greeted by curious stares from the villagers, who rarely saw outsiders. They decided to rest for the night in the village and continued their search in the morning. As they sought a place to stay, Princess Zola spotted a familiar face. Tobo, the courageous stranger who had defended an old man against Kojiso's men, was there, chopping firewood. "Tobo!" Zola called out, her voice filled with relief. Tobo turned, his expression shifting from surprise to a warm smile as he recognized the princess. He approached her and bowed respectfully. "Princess Zola, what brings you to our village?" "We are on an important assignment and need a place to stay," Zola explained. "Of course, Princess," Tobo replied without hesitation. "Come, my mother will be happy to let you stay." Tobo led them to his modest home at the edge of the village. Upon reaching the house, Tobo called out, and a woman emerged from behind the house, gathering firewood. As she approached, her eyes met with Chief Advisor Temba's, widening in recognition. This was Nomsa, the chief advisor's wife. Her hands trembled as she dropped the firewood and ran to embrace Temba. From inside the house, a regal woman with a calm yet commanding presence stepped out. The years had been kind to her, but the weight of her past was evident in her eyes. Nomsa then said to her, "My queen, meet your daughter." Princess Zola stared in astonishment as the woman approached, her breath catching in her throat. Tobo, standing beside his mother, was struck with the revelation. "Queen, what's going on here?" The group stood in poignant silence, the magnitude of the reunion sinking in. Emotions swelled, relief, joy, and a renewed sense of purpose. Chief Advisor Temba then turned to Tobo, introduced himself, and promised to narrate all that had happened without his knowledge. Nomsa invited them inside the house, and that night they sat together in the warm glow of the fire, sharing the long-kept secrets that had shaped their lives. However, from the shadows, Mandla's men, who had been tracking them, watched with keen eyes. They quickly turned and mounted their horses, rushing back to inform their master of the discovery. Back at Umbara's village, the king's health had improved, and when he learned that his daughter and advisor had gone to pray for him, and his cousin had also left the village claiming he also felt the need to pray for him, he was troubled. Knowing well that his cousin Mandla harbored hatred for him, the king sensed danger. He sent messengers to retrieve them, but they returned with news that they could not be found. King Zuberi, worried, gathered his warriors despite his recovering state and set out to find them. Determined not to let history repeat itself, his skillful men traced every possible step and trail they could find. Just like 20 years ago, the whole palace was in chaos as the king marched out with his royal guards. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over Tobo's village, the reunited family knew their journey was far from over. They would return to Umbara, prepared to reclaim what was rightfully theirs and restore justice to their land. The stage was set for the impending confrontation, but for now, Princess Zola and her companions found solace in the warmth of newfound allies and the hope of a long-awaited reunion. As they all journeyed back to Umbara, a sense of urgency and anticipation hung in the air. The dense forest canopy provided a natural cover, but it also cast eerie shadows that seemed to move with them. Tobo walked beside Princess Zola, still in shock at the revelation that the woman whom they had shared a moment with before was his twin sister. Suddenly, the tranquility of the forest was shattered by the sound of galloping horses. Mandla and his men emerged from the trees, blocking the path. His face twisted into a triumphant sneer as he dismounted his horse, drawing his sword. His men advanced, weapons drawn, surrounding them all. Kojiso stood at his grandfather's side, his expression a mix of fear and uncertainty. Mandla moved closer to Tobo, scrutinizing him. "Is this the so-called rightful heir?" Mandla sneered. Kojiso, recognizing him, said, "I've encountered him before, father, back in the village." Mandla was surprised, then gave a dagger to Kojiso, his eyes cold and commanding. "Kill him," he ordered, pointing at Tobo. "Prove you are worthy of the throne." Kojiso hesitated, the dagger trembling in his hand. He looked at Tobo, who stood tall and defiant, and then at his grandfather, whose eyes burned with ruthless determination. "Grandfather, I can't do this," Kojiso said, his voice shaking. "I don't want the throne this way." Mandla's face contorted with rage. "Coward," he hissed, grabbing the dagger from Kojiso's hand. "If you won't do it, then I will." As Mandla lunged towards Tobo, Kojiso, torn by his conscience, stood between Tobo and his grandfather, shouting, "No, this is madness." At that moment, the sound of approaching horses signaled the arrival of King Zuberi and his warriors. The king, despite his weakened state, led his men into the fray, determined to protect his daughter. The tide of the battle turned as the king's warriors overpowered Mandla's men. Seeing the reinforcements, Mandla's resolve wavered. Determined to seize victory, he aimed an arrow directly at King Zuberi. Seeing this, Queen Thandiwe, who had remained hidden until now, stepped into the line of fire. The arrow struck her, and she fell to the ground. "Zuberi, it's me," she gasped as the king rushed to her side. Cradling her in his arms, he realized that he was once again before his lost queen. King Zuberi, still focused on the fight, ordered his warriors to protect the queen. The warriors formed a protective circle around her, ensuring her safety as the battle continued. Seeing how his mother was wounded, Tobo's resolve hardened. With a fierce cry, he turned his attention to Mandla, charging forward. Kojiso, knowing he had to side with the king to save his mother from the punishment of his grandfather's rebellion, chose to stand with Tobo. Together, they fought valiantly, their combined strength and skill overpowering Mandla. The battle raged on, but it was clear that the tide had turned. The remaining enemy forces, seeing their leader defeated, surrendered. The forest grew quiet once more, the echoes of battle fading into the distance. The king's warriors quickly secured the prisoners, and King Zuberi, his heart heavy with both relief and sorrow, hugged the princess and looked around at his loyal subjects who had fought so bravely. There, as the realization of Tobo's true identity sank in as the rightful heir to the throne, King Zuberi's eyes filled with a mix of pride and regret. He approached Tobo, who stood beside Princess Zola and Kojiso, still catching his breath from the fierce battle. "My son," King Zuberi said softly as he embraced Tobo, feeling the strength and resolve of his long-lost son. As they made their way back to the palace, the bonds of family and unity had triumphed, setting the expectation for a new Umbara village. The palace of Umbara, now bathed in the soft glow of morning light, radiated a sense of newfound peace. The turbulent events of the past days had settled, and the air was filled with the promise of a brighter future. King Zuberi, recovering but resolute, sat on his throne with Queen Thandiwe by his side. Their daughter, Princess Zola, stood nearby with Tobo, the rightful heir, and the newly restored prince. Chief Advisor Temba was also present with his wife, Nomsa, their faces reflecting both relief and determination. Mandla was brought before them, his head bowed in a mix of defiance and resignation. Nkosana and Kojiso stood slightly behind him, their expressions a blend of shame and uncertainty. King Zuberi's voice was firm as he pronounced the sentence. "You are banished from Umbara, including every royal that had joined forces with you for the past 20 years. His gaze shifted to Nomsa and Kojiso. "Kojiso, you have fought for the crown and hence, both of you can retain your honor, but you will now stay outside the palace walls." With the decree made, Mandla was led away, his banishment marking the end of his treacherous ambitions. Nomsa and Kojiso, though spared, knew their lives would now be forever changed. The palace, once a place of contention and strife, began to breathe with the promise of unity and healing, as the royal family and the people of Umbara looked forward to a future built on trust and justice. As King Zuberi and Queen Thandiwe gradually recovered, Umbara experienced renewed hope and unity under Prince Tobo's temporary rule. Guided by his twin sister, Princess Zola, Prince Tobo earned respect from village elders for his fairness and justice, encouraged open dialogue, valuing the perspectives of the youth, while Zola helped him navigate alliances and treaties. Peace and prosperity returned to Umbara. The rightful heir ruled with wisdom, and the village thrived. Prince Tobo's reign marked the beginning of a new era, one where tradition and progress walked hand in hand, and unity and resilience defined the heart of Umbara. As the story of Umbara unfolds, we witness the triumph of unity, courage, and rightful leadership. Tobo's journey from humble beginnings to the throne symbolizes the resilience and strength within us all. Thank you for joining us on this epic adventure. If you enjoyed this tale, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring African stories. Until next time.